Okay. So I am Terry Helton. I am the co-chair with my husband, Tim Helton, for the Ventura County Interfaith Community. And we've been in existence since about 2006. Mike was one of those originating members, and I don't know who else is on the screen that could be, but I've met a number of you through Interfaith, and it's an honor to have you here. So, and it's kind of been fun doing these Zoom meetings throughout the last year and a half and learning a lot of new things. So welcome. And what we're going to do is ask everybody to mute themselves during this time so that we don't hear phone calls and kids and dogs barking. And we even heard a cat with our friend last night meowing, so that can happen. And the best way to find out about Ventura County Interfaith Community and the next thing that's happening is to visit our website at vcic.info. That's vcic.info. And you'll hear more about what we're doing. And we are doing something in November. It will be November 30th. And I'm rather excited about it. I'll share about it a little later. I just want to remind you that we're recording the forums, so you can find them on vcic.info website and share that information, or if you want to go back and hear something you thought you misunderstood or need to understand better. And at the end, there will be a question and answer session. Questions may be submitted via the chat facility, which can be accessed by hovering your cursor at the bottom of your screen and clicking on the chat icon. And then it would be good if you sent the questions to me by Terry Helton, and you can just send them directly to me. And then, Tim, are you doing a poll?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Tim's going to have a poll during this talk.
A survey.
And a survey, that's what, I know we're doing a survey. So it helps us keep, and I have an idea of how well we're doing and how we can improve this. So please complete the survey when Tim puts it up there. And we will put a link in the chat for a survey, and that's how we do it. And then I'm going to introduce one of the best people I've met in my life. And I can say that because he makes things run smoothly when he does IT stuff. And if you joined us for the musical event that we did a few months ago, he really helped do it well.
I was going to text you. Did Arlo not
This is why we mute.
want to come visit?
Just a second, I got it.
Okay. So Arash Payan is a lifelong Baha'i living in his native Thousand Oaks with his wife and 2 daughters. He did his undergraduate and graduate studies at the University of Southern California and received degrees in computer engineering and computer science, respectively. He leads a youth group on Friday nights and, along with his wife, hosts virtues classes for children Sunday mornings in the park. That sounds like it's kind of fun. So at this time, I'll introduce Arash to talk to us about the Baha'i Faith.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you to the VCIC, the Ventura County Interfaith Community, for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight. And I hope I can live up to everyone's expectations and goals here. So whenever it was kind of my turn to discuss something on our monthly forum, I initially had trouble trying to figure out what exactly I was going to talk about, or what aspect of the Baha'i Faith I was going to talk about. So I asked everyone in the core group to send me their questions, and I received a lot of questions. So thank you. But there were so many questions that it turned into just, I didn't know where to start. So the questions were kind of all over the place. So it forced me to have to really focus my talk down. And so that focused talk is what I'm about to present to you now. And I'm just going to start with a very narrow introduction about the Baha'i Faith, and then I'll try to fill in answers to questions throughout here wherever I can based on what I had received from everyone. And then maybe at the end we'll have a speed round of questions when everyone's just asking stuff and I can answer quickly to fill in all those little edge cases that people are wondering about. With my typical disclaimer, there's no clergy in the Baha'i Faith. So I'm not anyone special. All that I'm going to be sharing here this evening is my own understanding of the Baha'i writings. My understanding will probably be different tomorrow, a month, or a year, or definitely 10 years from now. So please don't think what I'm saying is gospel and this is what every Baha'i is like and believes. This is just the best that I figured out. So I guess whenever we want to talk about the Baha'i faith, we should probably talk about Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah is the founder of the Baha'i faith, the originator of the Baha'i faith. Baha'u'llah is a title that means glory of God. And the reason it means glory of God is because in Arabic, Baha means glory, Allah means God. So you just kind of put them together and you get Baha'u'llah, and you get glory of God. The teachings of Baha'u'llah they're expansive. They span many letters, books, tablets. You could fill a bookcase with them all. There's over 40 years of writings. And they cover, they describe a civilization and it describes the framework for a civilization in the spiritual and material dimensions of that civilization. And so whenever you say you're a Baha'i, it really means you're trying to take this all in and build this civilization in this world. So I'll start with the main three teachings that I think give that kind of dominates what Baha'is believe. And the first one is the teaching that Baha'u'llah says there is one God. Baha'is believe that there's one God, that whatever the name might be, whether you call God, the creator, Allah, Jehovah, Gaia, the Great Spirit, it's the same God that we all pray to. There's no distinction. And it's this one all-knowing God, all-wise God, present everywhere in this world and all the other worlds of God that we all pray to. The second teaching of Baha'u'llah is that there's one religion. Now you're like, what do you mean there's one religion? Well, that this one religion is that there's this one faith of God, that God has given us this one religion that has been here with humanity at all times. And that new messengers of God, we call them prophets, holy ones, divine, they call them divines, something. They show up every 500 to 1,000 years. And these manifestations or prophets go by the names that we all know as Abraham, Zoroaster, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus. Did I say Moses? Moses, of course. Muhammad, the Bab, and the forerunner to Baha'u'llah, and Baha'u'llah himself, which Baha'is believe is the most recent messenger. And so the reason these messengers come from time to time is that Baha'u'llah says this is to update humanity with new spiritual teachings, new social teachings, and new prescriptions for living for the day and age of humanity as humanity develops. So just as humanity develops physically and technologically, humanity must progress spiritually. And this spiritual knowledge comes from these divine teachers. And this whole process of receiving updates from God from time to time on religious teachings, Baha'is call this progressive revelation. And so this is why we describe this as one faith of God, because to God, religion has always been the same. It's just the only difference is what humanity's capacity understanding of what religion is. It's just as like if you could ask the sun anything, what's the difference between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to the sun? There's no difference to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to the sun. That's a concept on Earth. To the sun, there is no such thing. And it's kind of a similar metaphor with God and religion. So Baha'u'llah calls this one religion the changeless faith of God, eternal in the past. Oops, my slides don't work. The changeless faith of God, eternal in the past, eternal in the future. So that was the second teaching. So the first one was there is one God. The second one is that there is one religion. And now the third one. The third one is a teaching known as the oneness of humanity. Every human being, Baha'is believe, is created noble. This nobility is given to us by God, and every human has a soul which is given to us by God. And the soul itself has no gender, no race, no ethnicity, has no economic class or any other type of social class or has no physical distinction at all. It's an association. It's a purely spiritual entity, a mystical entity. We can't truly understand it, but it's every human has a soul. And so this idea of oneness of humanity is not just some sort of glittering statement, that's a feel-good statement that means nothing. To actually fulfill or live up to this idea of the oneness of humanity requires real work. It demands that we break down these barriers that are causing this disunity in this world, that's preventing us from acting as one human race, one family. So we need to break down these. It forces us to remold the relationships and the way we live our lives such that these barriers of race, class, gender, ethnicity, these prejudices that cause disunity, ridding the world of economic injustice, these are the things that will lead us towards the oneness of humanity and ultimately be a solution to the ailments of the world as we see around us now. Another implication of this teaching is that it implies that we treat each other as family. Would you let your family member, your sister, your brother, your parents go to bed hungry at night? But certainly you wouldn't. Yet we let that happen every single night in around the world. Like 1 billion people every night are going to bed hungry in the world, because we haven't unified humanity yet. Would you tolerate your sister not being able to go to school, not being forbidden to go to school, or not having money to go to school? That happens all the time. These are examples of this kind of injustice that we would not tolerate if we really saw all of humanity as our family. And so, though it's a short statement, it's a very 3 words, oneness of humanity. It has profound implications that when you fully realize and practice it, it's the groundwork. It's the driving motion to solve the problems of our fractured world. And I'll share another quote from this. I tried not to get too heavy with the quotes, but here's one more I wanted to share. Regard ye not one another as strangers, illumine and hallow your hearts. Let them not be profaned by the thorns of hate or the thistles of malice. Ye dwell in one world and have been created through the operation of one will. That one will, of course, being God. So those are just some of those are 3 of the major teachings of the Baha'i faith. Of course, there are a variety of laws and things around that we can get into later on the Q&A, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of it. And so now a common question I got from the folks at VCIC were, for a brief history, they asked me about the history of the Baha'i faith. So I'll try and give a little summary about that too. So the Baha'i faith traces its origins back to 1844 in Shiraz, in Persia, which is now currently Iran, when a young man named Sayyid Ali Muhammad, I think I have that up on the screen for you. There you go. So you can see that. Sayyid Ali Muhammad announced that he had been sent by God to prepare humanity for a new age and the imminent appearance of another messenger who was even greater than himself. This Sayyid Ali Muhammad took the title of the Bab. You can see it up on this presentation there. And the Bab is an Arabic word for the gate. So when we say the Bab, we're not saying like Robert, we mean the Arabic word gate. And the Bab said that the one who's coming, he foretold, would be the messenger of God that had been promised in all the world's religions. And this new messenger of God, this manifestation of God, would inaugurate a new age of peace and enlightenment. And so there are many teachings that the Bab spread, the message of the Bab spread rapidly throughout the country. But they were viewed as heretical by the clergy and the government of Persia. So, consequently, tens of thousands of his followers which were known as Babis, they're called Babis, were killed in massacres throughout the country. And even after those massacres and killings, there was ongoing torture and persecution thereafter. And the Bab himself was publicly executed in the city of Tabriz in July of 1850. And so Baha'is consider the Bab that we just described as the forerunner of Baha'u'llah. So now let's rewind back. We've got to 1850. Let's go back a little bit, back to 1817. November 12th, 1817, Mirza Hussein Ali was born. He was born into a noble family in Tehran, the son of a minister of in the government. A life of comfort and ease was guaranteed for him. He would have no problems. But in his mid-20s, he turned away that life, and he gave up that life of privilege and became a disciple of the Bab. And in 1852, during another round of the persecution of the Babis, he was arrested, beaten, and thrown into this dungeon in Tehran known as the Black Pit. This dungeon is underground. There's no ventilation. There's no light. It was not clean by any measure. The floor was ankle deep in filth and human excrement, full of disease, pestilence. And so he remained there for 4 months. And not only was he in these terrible conditions with all the thieves and murderers that were locked up in this area, he was also had a large, heavy chain bound around his neck. And though these chains were only on him during this time, this 4 months that he was in the prison, these scars remained on him for the rest of his life. So after 4 months, he was released and banished from Persia. And this was the beginning of 40 years of exile and imprisonment. So first he was sent to Baghdad, where he resided for 10 years. And he became well known and beloved by all the people in Baghdad. And the purity of his character made him well known amongst the people there. And he spread the teachings of the Bab there. And once again, as people became enamored with him, the government feared this and thought he was going to amass power or something. And so the government feared him and again exiled him. And this time they were going to send him off to Turkey in the Ottoman Empire. And ultimately another exile from the Ottoman Empire into the current Holy Land currently in Israel. But on the eve of his banishment to Turkey, to the Ottoman Empire, he announced that he was the messenger foretold of by the Bab. He was this promised messenger that the Bab had said would come and inaugurate this new age of enlightenment and peace around the world. I noticed I say inaugurate. I didn't say it would happen right away. So he made this announcement in 1863, and then in 1868, after the last leg of another banishment off into the Holy Land with his family, when he arrived in the Holy Land, he was sentenced by the Ottoman authorities to imprisonment or confinement in this penal colony named Acre, which is still there. It's a city now. It's no longer a penal colony, but it still remains there. And he was confined there technically for the rest of his life, but because of his growing recognition as a humanitarian, his pure character, his service to humanity, he was actually allowed to move outside the walls of the city, though he was technically still considered a prisoner. But the administrator of the city saw the discrepancy between what the authorities had said he had been accused of, but saw what Baha'u'llah was, and realized that this was not a legitimate imprisonment. So though the confinement order was never lifted, he was allowed to go beyond the walls of the city. And he passed away in 1892. But during that 40 years of exile and his time in Acre, when he was ministering to the poor, the needy, he wrote extensively these books and these tablets and these letters. And these writings that he wrote make up the core of the holy writings of the Baha'i faith, along with the writings of the Bab before him. And when he passed away, he left a will, and in his will, he named his eldest son. I'm sorry, I haven't been changing the slides for you. There's the Mirza Hussein Ali, the name of Baha'u'llah, the given name, and there's the title. And so when he passed away, he named his eldest son, Abbas Effendi, as the head of the Baha'i faith and the authorized interpreter of his writings. And Abbas Effendi's title was Abdul Baha. And Abdul Baha means, again, it's another Arabic word. Abdul means servant. Baha means glory. So this servant of glory is what the title means. And as you can imagine, based on his name, his service to humanity became well known throughout the region. He even became knighted for his service. And he traveled to Europe and North America to encourage newly formed Baha'i communities to go out and serve, and to also give talks and proclaim the teachings of Baha'u'llah just to the general public all around. And so when Abdul Baha passed away in 1921, his will designated his grandson Shoghi Effendi as his successor. And Shoghi Effendi's title was the guardian of the Baha'i faith. And during the guardian's ministry, the Baha'i faith spread around the world through really all the regions of the world at this point. And furthermore, the institutions of the Baha'i faith were established, so that it wasn't just necessarily individuals doing everything. And then finally, with the passing of the guardian in 1957, the line of hereditary leaders of the Baha'i faith came to an end. And the administration of the faith is now run by the institutions of the Baha'i faith. And that is the brief history of the Baha'i faith. I mean, there's much more I can go into, but I thought, again, it's just a sample. We don't have a ton of time. So there we have it. I guess if there are any questions now, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
So Arash, I don't have any new questions, but I have a bunch of questions,
Okay.
as you're well aware of. And
Yeah.
so I was looking at them and trying to put some order to them.
Yeah.
And I may have missed this and you may have said it. What does Baha'i mean? Because you explained the meaning of Baha'u'llah, but I don't remember you explaining the meaning of Baha'i.
Well, so Baha'i just has that roots of Baha in there again. So Baha means glory in Arabic. So I guess if you would translate, Baha'i means like maybe follower of glory or of glory, something like that. Yeah. So that's what Baha'i means. So if the proper, you would say, if you want to look at it in terms of grammatically speaking, I am a Baha'i. I am a member of the Baha'i faith. If you want to call a group of Baha'is, you say they are Baha'is. Yeah. So that's how the grammar of it kind of works.
Okay.
We don't say Baha'ism or anything like that. It's or Baha'inity or anything like that. It's just
I finally learned that it's the Baha'i faith.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So, and Rabbi Mike asked this, what is the number of those following the Baha'i faith in this country, in the world? Do you know?
Yeah. So I know in the United States, it's about 100,000 from what I remember. Around the world, I don't know that. I try to look up and find the right answer for this. There are no official numbers from in the Baha'i world on this. We don't know, but some other organizations have done just kind of religious surveys around the world of the numbers of different faiths. And the best numbers I could found were somewhere between 6 and 7 million. But you know, that's not authoritative. That's just what some surveying companies found. Yeah.
They're usually pretty accurate.
Yeah. And mostly, I think it's statistically speaking, just mostly in India, probably just because the population, you know,
Well,
a
I don't know.
plurality. I wouldn't say majority, plurality.
The
right.
plurality in India?
Yeah, because, you know, plurality of the population of the world is in India. So,
Well, that would be interesting to know for another discussion.
sure.
So,
I think
because I
Rabbi Mike
know
has got
there's
yeah.
a number of believers in the United States and Canada and other nations. So, but yeah, that would be an interesting thing to know. So somebody asked, does there exist an objective, a drive, a mission with the Baha'i faith?
I think I would say to build an ever advancing civilization in this world and to unite mankind unto this one faith, so we're all working together to bring in this age of enlightenment and peace. That
So
would be
there's
it.
no set dogma. No set.
I mean, I mean, there are laws and there are prayers that we're supposed to practice. I mean, I give a very high level overview of it, but yeah, I mean, there are practices. For example, like every day we're supposed to say our obligatory prayer. We have a prayer that we're supposed to say once every day. Supposed to read the writings in the morning and the night. There are, I'm trying to think of, I'm assuming by dogma you mean rules and things of that sort, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I know there are more rules. I just can't think of it.
Well, let me help you out because somebody had an idea about this.
Okay.
Give us a sense of where the boundaries are. So like reincarnation.
Oh yes. Yeah. So in terms of yeah, like in reincarnations, that type of thing. So the Baha'i view on this is that our soul, the association between the soul and the body or life happens at conception. When conception is still medically unknown, but it's at the moment of conception, and that the soul is created and given to us by God at that moment, and then after, and so this life that we have here is just the first stage in a life that goes on eternally, in all the worlds of God after this. So this is just the first stage. There's a wisdom. There's a reason that we're here as to grow our spiritual limbs here, develop our spiritual eyes and ears, in preparation for our existence in the next worlds of God. And yeah, and those other worlds are not a physical world. It's a spiritual world. We don't know what it's like, but it's not physical. Yeah.
So did you exist before you came to Earth then? Let me clarify that.
Not in Baha'i beliefs. Spies don't believe that. No.
So this is an interesting idea. Do you believe in a cataclysmic event that will usher in the new civilization you spoke about?
Cataclysmic, as in like it'll happen overnight and something will happen like that?
Like
or
something horrible may happen that will bring in the idea of peace or...
Oh, I see. I mean, my understanding is that it's not going to be a single event like that. No. I mean, if we continue to let the world unravel as it is right now, and this disunity continues festering, surely we see all around us disunity is causing problems for us all around the world as it is. So it's really up to us as individuals to get out there and serve and build our communities so that over time, this new era of peace will arrive. It won't happen overnight. It's going to take a while. Yeah. So we do this as Baha'is. We do this by, for example, the children's classes and these virtues classes, and by raising children up with morals and spiritual values, tending to the youth and the junior youth in our communities. And when I talk about this, I'm not talking about like this is just what Baha'i children do. This is something for all children that Baha'is do in all communities all around the world. So like the classes that we teach here in the United States are the same that you would be taught anywhere in Portugal and Europe, or in Chile or South Africa, or the Netherlands, China. I mean, these are the same. They're translated into the local languages, but it's the same teachings. And so we feel that building community through these, and teaching, for example, we have study circles for adults too, where we teach about the importance of the equality of men and women, the importance of eliminating racial prejudices, the importance of education of all the children, not just boys, which is what so often happens, but making sure that young girls are also given an education. So these kinds of social teachings are the ones that we work to teach all around the world, and we hope that these are the steps that help bring upon an awareness in the community, building a spiritual susceptibility to ultimately get the community to a point where they start analyzing the problems around them and looking for the urgent problems in their part of the world, and addressing them together as a whole, as a unit, instead of everyone trying to go off in their own directions trying to do what they want, by actually uniting communities to getting them to focus on what their problems are and solving them, and seeing each other as parts of one human body. That, you know, my brother in China is just as much as afflicted by any pain as I am over here, and vice versa. So
that leads to my own question, Arash, and that is, this educational material ideas you said it's the same basically around the world. So how is leadership established to do this? Because it does take, how is this all established and the decisions made?
yes, absolutely. So great question. So whenever I said at the end that when LaGuardian passed away in 1957, that brought about the transition to what was known as, so Baha'u'llah had described in his writings that there would be what's known as a universal house of justice. This would be the institution that would administer the affairs of the faith after the passing of the guardians. In association with the guardian. So what we currently have in the Baha'i world is the universal house of justice. So we have in the Baha'i world, in every community, every locality around the world, we have what we call local assemblies, spiritual assemblies. It's 9 members we vote for. Every year we have elections and we vote for 9 of the people in our community without regard to class, race, gender, any of that stuff. We just, and it's all secret ballot. No one knows who's voting for who. And it's the duty of every member to elect to nine members to serve on this assembly for their locality. Now, additionally, every year, the locality or the votes for also a representative to send to a national convention for every country, and these delegates from all around the country vote for a national assembly, and then similarly, these National Assembly members also vote every 6 years or 4 years. Maybe one of the Baha'is can help me on that.
Ahmed said 5 years.
5. There you go. Split the difference. 5 years. Every 5 years to elect a universal house of justice, the members of the universal house of justice. And so whenever we look for, the great gift in the Baha'i faith is having the universal house of justice as the center of our covenants, for which we receive all our guidance and our, I guess you could say, marching orders. And so this is why we have unified curriculum all around the world, and they have their fingers on the pulse of the Baha'i world everywhere, and that's how we all work together to establish this. So it's really great. Like, I could travel anywhere in the world, find the local Baha'i community, and I'd be like right up to speed with what they're doing, because we're all working on the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So interestingly, my memory tells me that there is equality between the genders in leadership up until the international level. Is that correct?
That's correct. The international, the Universal House of Justice, it's only men that can be elected to the Universal House of Justice. The reason for this is written in the writings. Is not, it says it's not given now, but it says it will become clear as the noonday sun, I think is the word, in the future. So I can't explain it, but yes, that is true. But on the flip side, though, in that period between when Abdul Baha died and Shoghi Effendi took the reins of the Baha'i faith as the minister of the faith, Abdul Baha's sister was actually managing the affairs of the faith. So for a while, we actually had a woman leading the Baha'i faith. But yes, to be honest, it's we don't know.
Okay.
Do not know.
So there's a few questions here. And by the way, people are saying you're doing a wonderful job. You need to know that.
Thanks. I think Mike has had his hand up for a while. I don't know if you want to.
I haven't seen Mike. Mike, go ahead.
Oh, you're muted.
As usual, I have lots of questions, but I'm very interested in the understanding of the status of Baha'u'llah, if I'm saying that correctly. He sounds like a messianic figure,
Uh-huh.
and I think you said something like it was that would be his his writings are the end of progressive revelation? Did I get that correct? Is he the final prophet? That's the question.
Oh no, no, he's not. Oh no, no, he's not the end of progressive. I say he just describes this process where a new prophet comes every 500 to 1,000 years as
Oh,
progressive
okay.
revelation, and there will be in another 1,000 years there will be another messenger. No question about it.
So the question that I have is, what makes his writings holy? Is he considered just a particularly good messenger of God? Is his in other Abrahamic religions,
Mhm.
Scripture is considered to be the word of God,
Yes.
or the word of a prophet, which is
Yes.
understood to be a word of God.
Yes.
Or, of course, in Christianity, Jesus has a status of God in
Yes.
some sense. So I'm curious about his status in particular,
Yes.
not wanting to wait another 300 years for the next.
Okay. All right. So the question is essentially, is Baha'u'llah God? And
or messianic.
yeah. And so the short answer is yes. But you could also say, is Baha'u'llah not God? Well, same yes. And it's what really is, the question comes down to, Baha'u'llah is a manifestation of God. He speaks for God.
In
He
a
is
different way
God.
than we're all manifestations of God.
We're not, different than us being as reflections of God. We are created in the image of God. We have we are capable of expressing all of the attributes and names of God, but we are not actual manifestations of God. We are just, we're like that though, but we're not actually God. Baha'u'llah was a manifestation of God, as was the Bab before him. So when I think this term manifestation oftentimes is often a confusing term. So if I may just give an example of what it means, a manifestation is literally just like an expression of it. If you look into a mirror and you see that reflection of yourself, that's a manifestation of you. Is it you? Well, it's not technically you, but it's a manifestation of you. It's a representation of you. And so Baha'u'llah is the manifestation of God here on earth for the purposes of so that humanity can learn, because the only way we learn about God is through God's messengers and I'm using messengers and manifestations, prophets interchangeably here. I purposely do that to make sure everyone's feeling the same thing. Maybe it's confusing everyone. I don't know.
So the reason his writings are studied and are considered holy
Yes,
is that they are in some sense from
they
God.
they are exactly, they are the writings of God. Yes.
And they are in Arabic or
They're in
Farsi?
Persian and Arabic, but they're translated into English. I can't read Persian or Arabic, but
Mhm.
yeah, they're widely translated into English and other languages. Yeah. I hope I answered the question well.
Yeah, very. Thank you.
Okay.
Mike, are you done?
For the moment,
Okay. I thought this was an interesting question. Does Baha'i seek converts? Is there a formal conversion process?
Well, seeking we like to teach the faith. We're told that we need to go out and teach the faith and tell people about Baha'u'llah, but the only person that can convert anybody is yourself. So, yes, we would love to have more people serving with us, but serving with a Baha'i and working with your community of youth or children, or studying holy writings and getting together for prayer circles and serving our wider community doesn't require you to be Baha'i. But if anyone would like to be Baha'i, of course, it's in the United States, so you can officially be Baha'i. The age of 15 is marked as the age of spiritual maturity. So that's the time whenever you're kind of you're spiritually responsible for your own faith. So that's kind of the time whenever you decide if you're Baha'i or not. Yeah.
So, which makes me think, if you were going to talk to somebody about the Baha'i faith and encouraging them to serve with you, and even look at the Baha'i faith as conversion, how would you describe God and how would you worship him or her?
So describing God, well, describing God as the all-knowing, whenever we say our prayers, every one of the prayers that we, so whenever the prayers that we say in the Baha'i faith are have been revealed to us by Baha'u'llah. You can say a prayer of your own making, of course, but we also have these prayers that are given to us by the Bab, by Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, which have a special power when they are recited. And these prayers are always ended with the various attributes of God. So we say the all-knowing, the all-wise, the all-powerful, the all-merciful, the most compassionate. So we can only understand God with the words that we know, and these are the words that we can describe God with. But it's like asking a rock to understand us. You can't truly understand God. What we understand from God is what we learn through God's messengers. That's why Abraham, Zoroaster, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. This is why Buddha. This is why they come to, because it's the only way for us to know God. That's why we have these spiritual teachers.
So, okay, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just thinking to myself.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you have a daily prayer that you start with, right? Can you share what that prayer is?
Sure. So there are three versions of the prayer. You can say that they're simply called the short version, the medium version, and the long version. So if you guys are okay with it, I'll just say the short one for you really quick. So. I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. I testify at this moment to my powerlessness and to thy might, to my poverty and to thy wealth. There is none other God but thee, the help in peril, the self-subsisting.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful prayer. Thank you.
And
Mike, did you have something?
I was just saying amen.
Yeah. Amen. Yes, that universal word. Yeah. So, and this is, it's kind of a different question, but I think it's really important. And there's a few of them kind of related to this idea.
Sure.
So recognizing the origins of the Baha'i faith in Iran, created and knowing that the Baha'u'llah was driven from Iran and there was a lot of persecution there.
Yeah.
Can we assume that globally the Baha'i faith is the place for those driven from other more restrictive practices to find a place of refuge?
I don't know. I mean,
well, the person asked, is the Baha'i faith a refugee faith?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't describe it as something that just for people to find. I mean, you can certainly find a refuge in that. This is a path to God. I guess I don't know the right answer. I don't know the best answer for that. But I think, the Baha'is come from all walks of life. I know lots of Christian convert Baha'is, Muslim, previously Jewish Baha'is, Muslim Baha'is, lifelong Baha'is like myself, previously Hindu Baha'is. I know, I don't know, previously atheist Baha'is even. So I don't know. I think the teachings of Baha'u'llah offer, what's the word? They offer guidance and assurance and a path for creating a better world for all people. So it's really about if it touches your heart and you accept Baha'u'llah. So because to be a Baha'i is really to simply accept Baha'u'llah as the manifestation for this day and age, and to try to obey the laws of Baha'u'llah. So that's really all it means to be Baha'i, just to, recognize Baha'u'llah and follow his laws.
Okay. So we were talking about the Baha'i faith being a refugee faith, possibly.
Yeah.
So do followers of the Baha'i faith come together as a united group or work with other religions to fight for religious freedom? Do you get involved? Do Baha'i observers get involved in the religion on a national or international basis? You already answered that, but do you have conferences? You do.
Yeah, there's some conferences and things too. Sure. Yeah.
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 But do you work together for religious freedom and
Yeah, actually, the Baha'is work with any like-minded organizations that are well, that are non-political, that are just trying to whatever in whatever way, whether it's for environmental justice or racial justice, any organization that's working to, for example, like the interfaith community is great, right? Like the interfaith community is a wonderful organization, at least the Ventura County one. I know the Conejo Valley one. Any organization that is like-minded and trying to serve the community and work to improve the world, whether that's fighting for religious freedom, I shouldn't say fighting for really advocating for religious freedom. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I say religious freedom because you mentioned that in the question, but because in Iran right now, the Baha'is are still suffering from persecution from the government. And so we certainly advocate for him, but
okay.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to know.
Yeah.
So, and now there's a few more questions, but this one's going to get a little personal and then we'll move on to some other questions. So somebody specifically said that they love the attributes of the Baha'i faith, the service idea of serving.
Yeah.
And I agree with them. And so you are such a kind and generous person. Have you always been this way, or has this faith helped you acquire these wonderful qualities to be a person of service?
Oh, you shouldn't have asked that, Terry.
Well, truthfully, I would say my faith has helped me to grow and develop. So, and would you say that about your faith?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think whenever I think for me, it's very easy. We all live in a society. No one lives in a bubble. And as a part of society, you're constantly bombarded by these negative forces. And and you can't say that you're immune to it. It's not true. Everyone's affected by it to some degree. But having the writings, reading the writings daily, living within the Baha'i community where we're constantly trying to help each other, motivate each other, encourage, and going back to the writings for that spiritual energy is what helps trying, society is constantly trying to knock me off the straight path and, push me left this way and that way. But having the writings helps keep me aligned and trying to get better. So I wouldn't say I'm far from perfect, but it helps me get better every day. Yeah.
So, well, staying kind of on this stream, I heard you say you've been a Baha'i since you were a child.
Yeah.
And so and now I'm going to say, my understanding is as a Christian, I make that decision on my own to become a Christian. I'm not automatically born into the faith of Christianity, where a Jewish person is born a Jew, correct, Rabbi? You're muted.
You're muted, yeah.
Judaism is not strictly speaking religion in that sense, it's a nationality.
Right. So, and people do make the choice to convert to Judaism.
Right. And that makes it both.
Right. So is there a so how and when does a person, you said they make a decision when they're 15 years old.
So 15 years of age is known as the age of spiritual maturity, where it's kind of like you can't blame your parents anymore for anything. The moral decisions you're making are your own at this point. But Baha'is, if you're a Baha'i, you're supposed to raise your child as a Baha'i as well. But again, it's up to them. It's up to them to make the decision. If they don't want to be a Baha'i, no one can force them to be a Baha'i. It doesn't mean if they don't want to be a Baha'i, doesn't mean that they're exiled or banished or anything like that. But it's a personal thing. And if they choose not to be Baha'i, they're not a Baha'i. That's fine. They don't have to abide it. Yeah.
So is there a particular ritual or ceremony for one to become a member of the Baha'i faith?
No, simply accepting Baha'u'llah. That's what it is. Accepting Baha'u'llah, recognizing Baha'u'llah as the messenger for this day and following his teachings. In the United States, because we have like a registration system, we have, to get emails and the quarterly magazine, we you can sign. Sometimes we have like little 15-year-olds are signing their Baha'i registration cards, but that's a very U.S. thing. It's not worldwide.
Okay.
Maybe some other countries have it too. I don't know, but
So I have one, the rabbi was very quietly and he surreptitiously put this in here. What do you mean by there is one religion?
Meaning that that the one religion is that Judaism and Christianity and Islam, Zoroastrianism, and these are all facets of the same religion of God. God has given us these religions. It was the same God, so it's the same religion. It's just humanity's understanding of it that has changed over time. The God has continued, always sent messengers saying, love each other, serve each other, but worship me is of course one of the teachings of God. But the social teachings change from time to time, from age to age. As humanity changes, the needs of humanity changes. So they're like new lesson plans that are coming in from God. So the teachings of the Baha'i faith are just the latest lesson plan from God. So it's the same religion. It's just
But different religions certainly have different rituals and rules. Eating pork, day you worship, day of resting, things.
And
you
those,
do,
are the
things you don't
social,
do.
absolutely, and those are the social teachings that we believe change from teacher to teacher. So whenever
But we
God
would,
sends a message.
I would say most of us would describe those as different religions, even though we
Yeah.
might hold with the idea of one God.
Yeah,
The word religion, as I love to point out, comes from the same root as the word for ligament. It's that which joins us.
uh-huh.
But once you start talking about conversion and so on, you're really recognizing that there are different paths. They may be going to the same place.
Yes.
So maybe that's why I asked what you meant by
Yeah,
the word.
I think I agree with your statement. I'm not. There is one religion and there are multiple religions. I don't think there's. Yeah. I'm not denying the existence of any faith. I'm just.
And also, I think you're not saying that Baha'i is the one true religion and other religions are false.
No, definitely no, absolutely not. No, no.
Well, and that's a good point to make. And we know that, but not everybody may know
Okay,
that.
yeah,
So I'm
I'm
glad
glad
that was brought out.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, but it does open that question up again to some of the beliefs. So, and those beliefs, those teachings socially change.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about same-sex marriage?
So in the Baha'i faith, so in the Baha'i marriage, same-sex marriage is not something that's permitted, but it's not something that, but again, that's something that for Baha'is to uphold. It's not something that we require everyone else around us to follow either. It's just a Baha'i thing. Yeah.
So what would happen if you had a same-sex couple that wanted to join the Baha'i faith, become Baha'i?
I don't know, actually. I don't know.
You don't know, we'll leave it there, but something to ponder.
If you want me to find out, I can try and investigate and see.
And I would only ask you to find out for yourself. So, but it's an interesting, it isn't, and maybe other people would like to know, but it is an interesting question.
Yeah.
So, because that is how our society, as you said, the social things change.
Yeah, I would imagine if they wanted to become Baha'is and thereby accept, so whenever I said, what does it mean to Baha'i? It means to recognize Baha'u'llah and to accept the laws of Baha'u'llah. So I would imagine that they would have to end the same-sex marriage. Again, I don't know that it would be the process for it. I mean, again, I think, let me give another example. It's not exactly correlated, but let me give another example. There are folks who become Baha'is who have been, who drink alcohol, and drinking alcohol is prohibited in the Baha'i faith. But whenever someone who drinks alcohol declares their faith in Baha'u'llah, we don't tell them, okay, you can't do anything until you stop drinking right away and have to go cold turkey. Now, I'm not saying, sexuality is a choice either. I'm just saying, I'm trying to give an example. But the Baha'i faith doesn't really focus on the sexuality of individuals. It's not, we don't define ourselves by our sexuality. Our souls have no gender, have no sex, have no class or race or anything like that. So but it's something. But Baha'is have come from all sorts of backgrounds, have all sorts of problems and challenges and things that they need to change when they become Baha'i. And the best that we can do as Baha'is is to welcome them into a supportive community and help them with whatever challenges they may have. And sometimes those challenges need to be tackled personally. It doesn't mean that you have to be coming out and confessing to everyone what you've been doing. It's just they're individual challenges, and no one's supposed to be butting into each other's lives.
So, and it is interesting that social beliefs change and teachings change, because in the 1800s and early 1900s, there were beliefs from Christians that there shouldn't be interracial marriage. And how do we ask, somebody who is a person of color to quit loving a person who is white? So that is just another idea of that.
Yeah, and I think one thing to be remembering here, though, is that whenever it doesn't mean that you stop loving a person. It simply means, in terms of the same-sex marriage, it would mean stopping sexual relations between the two people. It wouldn't mean you love a person any less. So I think there's just not that much emphasis on sex as being a way of expressing love in the Baha'i faith. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just not. Yeah.
But you would ultimately, and I won't push it anymore, but you would ultimately be asking them to break up that relationship.
Yeah. Yes. The marriage. Yes.
The marriage relationship.
Yes.
So leaving it there, so I don't forget to remind people that there is a survey in the chat. If you can click on the link and do the survey, that would be greatly appreciated. And it will take you to a webpage. And are you still good, Arash?
Oh, I was just clicking the survey link, but I'm fine. Yeah. But yeah, I can take more questions. No problem.
Okay.
Arash, I'll ask a question if that's okay with Terry.
Oh, that's great with me.
Is there a difference? Do Baha'is enjoy a different afterlife than non-Baha'is?
No, we all go to the same place. Yeah. As I mentioned before, it's our time here is to develop our spiritual limbs and eyes and ears for the next world. Again, this is a metaphor. There are no actual physical limbs, but to develop our soul through goodly deeds, by leading compassionate lives, by serving God and worshiping. And worship takes many forms. It comes in prayer and service to humanity. Even work that serves humanity, the greater good, is considered worship. So if you're doing your day job, that's also considered worship. By practicing and strengthening our virtues, whether that's it's kindness, justice, knowledge, wisdom, all these things. So those are how we develop ourselves spiritually, and that's when we end up in the next world of God with developed at the various levels. I should also note that just because you say you're Baha'i doesn't guarantee anything about that. It doesn't mean you're ahead of anyone else or behind anyone else. It's just you still have to work for it. It's a two-part. You actually have to work for it. You can't just say I'm Baha'i and I get in. And it's not at all like that. Yeah.
Oh, here's one I missed. Do you study the Baha'i faith on a daily basis? I know you said you do a prayer, but do you do a devotional?
Daily readings, yes. So in the morning and the evening. Besides that, the individual daily readings, Baha'is get together varying periods, weekly, bi-weekly, semi-weekly, whatever, monthly, for devotionals and study circles and things of that sort. Yeah.
Do you have somebody who does a talk on a routine basis?
We actually had a very routine talk right before the pandemic. We have like some, I guess there's no one that goes up there and gives a talk about everything, but when we get together, it's kind of like a group consultation, and we all deepen and try and help each other understand whatever writing we're deepening on at that particular moment.
So you're all on the same page for the writing, and then you study it, and then you're prepared to have the conversation.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. There's no formal method of doing it, but it's up to the individuals on how they want, and the groups to how they want to study together. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think Mike
There-
had his hand up again. Sorry.
Mike had this question. Okay, where'd you go, Mike?
Yeah,
Oh, you're in
I'm
there.
here. So I always think that one of the most difficult questions religions have to answer is the response to tragedy. Different than evil. Evil is what people do to each other. Tragedy can be illness, it can be an earthquake, a tsunami. Do you have a sense of how Baha'i responds to the tragic, cancer?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, it depends. Like you said, there are two types of it. There's like the human cause, and there's just kind of the random or whatever.
I think of the human cause as evil and
Yeah.
the non-human caused as tragedy.
Yeah, I haven't given this as thorough thought as probably you have given about this, but so I'll try and do my best. And I'm sure, actually, any other
Yeah,
Baha'i might give a better
recognizing that
answer than
I'm
me.
obsessed with this. So
Okay. Right. I, the one thing I know from the writings is that, and actually this is common in all the religions of God, is that one of the ways that we kind of purify ourselves and strengthen ourselves spiritually are through tests. And that God never tests the soul beyond their capacity. That doesn't mean their tests come in different varieties. There are physical tests, there are mental tests, spiritual tests, emotional tests. But our job, if you will, is to handle these tests and grow from them. Now everyone's getting different tests, and the capacity of one person may be different than the capacity of another person, and what kind of test they can handle. But probably that's the best answer I can give. I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer though, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk more about this with you because I think it's super interesting. I don't know if everyone else is interested in listening to you and I go back and forth on it though, but I'd love to chat.
yeah, I mean, the issue is whether you believe that we're not tested beyond our ability.
Oh, I see.
I don't believe it, but based on my experience with people who are going through what others might describe as tests. And in effect, what you're saying is a tragedy really isn't a tragedy. It's really a test, and you're strengthening your soul through being tested. It's a workout. It's not a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, it could still be a tragedy, no? I mean, if there's an earthquake, it's still a tragedy, right?
Oh, I think it's a tragedy. And, I don't know, 1 million people die of COVID. Those people weren't given only as much as they could handle.
Yeah, I think one other aspect of it that I consider when I think about this, though, is that whenever we talk about our lives, in the Baha'i writings, it says, I'm going to have to paraphrase it because I can't remember the first part of it, but fear not death, for death is a messenger of joy that I brought to thee. So yes, the act of dying it could be horrible, but death itself is not something to be feared. Remember, this is just the first stage in our eternal life. And so whenever we talk about we even say our true life begins after we die. So,
okay, so that's an important distinction, I would say.
Yeah, to leave this world and go to the next world it's a far better place to be than here. Yeah,
And you're sure of that? I'm always curious
I have
how
faith in
people know.
that.
Okay,
Yes.
So
okay.
you don't believe in hell?
Hell is a personal thing in Baha'i theology, as in like it's whenever you allow the ego and your selfishness and materialism to take over your life. A literal hell with like a
hell is an
Satan life,
afterlife phenomenon, I think is what Terry.
there's no hell as an afterlife phenomenon.
That's interesting.
It's up to us as again, every individual develops their soul to varying degrees based on what they do here. So they'll be prepared at various levels in the next world, but there's no hell. You might be missing a spiritual leg in the next world, but there's no hell. Yeah. And again, so back to the writing, it says, don't focus on too much on what exactly is happening at the next world, as the Guardian has written. Focus on serving here and, doing your goodly deeds here and studying the writings and worshiping God here.
The Christianity has the same teaching that, about God doesn't give us more than we can handle, basically.
Yeah.
And, I agree with Mike. There are times, the tsunami that took, how many hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I took this a different way, but
Terry,
sometimes,
if I can interrupt really quickly,
yeah,
my
I was going to go
apology.
there.
my apology for the survey having the wrong title. It is the correct survey. I just changed the title, I hope. And what happened was I adapted it from the Scientology survey and changed some of the questions, but we should be good now, and just ignore the word Scientology on top, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Back to you, Terry.
Okay. Okay, so I have two things here. First of all, this is from somebody that is in the Baha'i faith, and it's a personal response. Gay people would never be personally shunned or discriminated against in the faith. They're welcome with open arms and enrolled freely. In the faith, sex takes place within marriage, and the same-sex marriage isn't recognized, but a married same-sex couple might be encouraged to remain friends of the faith and not formally enroll, but participate. Also, we know we don't pry into people's personal lives. That's a good way to put it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then somebody else shared what Mike brought up is exciting. Often is the case that joy is entangled with sadness. Humans experience tragic situations which later become inspirations and growth opportunities. And this is actually true. It's something I also teach, and probably Mike teaches it. But whenever we have majorly negative events in our life, if you would look at a timeline and you see the negative on the bottom of that timeline and then go back, you will usually see a very positive event or growth happening after that negative event. It brings out growth and positive things. I've seen it in my personal life. And when I talk to other people and they do a timeline like that, they recognize it. So, but that still doesn't answer the pain of, all the people lost in the tsunamis, the earthquakes, the fires, and that personal tragedy. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So, any other questions?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I have one, and it's this question, I want to know this, but I don't think it's true. Is it true that the spring celebration must be held outside?
Oh,
And while you're at it, Arash,
yeah.
You have a lot of people from the Baha'i faith here, but not everybody knows about the 19th of March and the rest of the year, and how you break up the months.
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to discuss that too. Yeah. So okay. Let me start off with the count. So the Baha'is have a calendar, the Baha'i calendar. I should call it the Badi calendar, but you can call it the Baha'i calendar. And it's broken up into 19 months, and each month of the year has 19 days. So 19 times 19 gives you 361 days. And those remaining 4 or 5 days, depending on if it's how the earth revolved around that sun every 4 years, those remaining 4 or 5 days are called the intercalary days, the days between the calendar. So the end of the 18th month, that right before the beginning of the last month of the year, we have what's the celebration of Nowruz. I'm sorry, no, I'm mixing up the fast with that. At the I'm sorry, you guys. At the beginning of a new year, we have Nowruz, and that's the first day of the year starts in spring. And so I think if that question is talking about the spring celebration, it's talking about Nowruz, the new year. And it doesn't have to happen outside, and it's just a time for people to come together and celebrate, and again to do service and celebrate a new year. It doesn't have to happen outside now.
And I knew that because we celebrated 1 year with the Baha'i. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
in Oxnard, we went to Oxnard and did that.
Oh, cool.
So it was very nice. So thank you. Are there any more questions? Anybody raising their hand there?
Yeah,
Mike?
I'll ask, is there a sense of predestination in Baha'i, that God knows the future and things are going exactly according to God's plan? Or is there free will, or
There,
in some
yeah,
sense both?
there is free will. Look, I guess to give a quick metaphor, which is how we often think about these things, is that God is like the sail and is like the wind in the seas, and you can choose to put your sail up and go with the flow that God is directing you, or you can go against it. It's up to you. But there is free will.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. That's why it's up to us to develop our spiritual selves.
Well, I think you have done an amazing job and have our hands
Thank
raised.
you all for coming. I appreciate it.
And it is not the easy part is doing the talk at the beginning. The hard part is answering all the questions.
Oh, really? I would have been fine if we had just done an hour of question and answer. The talk is hard. Yeah.
So, and do know that your survey, those who answered the survey, it will go to the Baha'i Faith. It won't go to Scientology. That one's done and passed. So we have all done that, done something, and then we forget to change the title or whatever. It happens.
Yeah.
So anything? Oh, wait, I need to share something. May I have share power, honey? Because if you like this, you can go to our website, vcic.info, and look at past events that we've had. They're recorded, as this one will be. And then on November 30th, we will be doing this event, if I can find it. What? Interesting.
You're off.
And I have it open. How come I can't share it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Can you see this? So this is the title, Gratitude in Action. Save the date, Tuesday, November 30th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And it is about turning our gratitude into action. And we will have 3 speakers that night. Linda Lowe, who is a great moderator, will be moderating. She attends Padre Sarah. She will be moderating, and the speakers will be from Adelante Comunidad Conejo, Friends of Field Workers, and the Women's Interfaith Network from the Conejo Valley area. I think you really would like to be there to hear about these groups and what they do in Ventura County and how amazing they are. And then I think I had a confirmation earlier that in January 25th, we will hear from Rabbi Mike about his about Judaism, and then we will turn the tables with the questions.
If I may, if I may, Terry,
Yes.
I'm going to put the link in the chat to the the webpage for the November event.
Okay.
And not only is it an opportunity to see what those organizations are doing, but it's also an opportunity for us to learn how we can get involved and serve too with them. So, yeah.
Oh, yes, that's exactly why we want to do this. So we want to turn that idea of knowing about things into actually becoming action. So we have a lot of opportunities, and I'm going to say something positive, that we had an opportunity to do interfaith work with Habitat for Humanity. And Tim and I went, and we had a great time on Friday, and it looks like some people went on Saturday and had a good time. And I will say the Conejo Valley Interfaith Association and some of their members were there on Friday and Saturday. It was such a great thing to do, and I would encourage anybody to contact them and see when you can help. It's a great way to serve. So be looking for some service projects. and sign up with us. Anything else, Tim?
No?
No? Okay. So we will say, have a good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you're interested, please contact the webmaster to get your name on there.